to my channel. Today we will discuss about pathophysiology of Parkinsonism. But before going into that, I would like to tell you, if you have not subscribed my channel, kindly subscribe it. I have observed that more than 50% of viewers have not subscribed my channel. So as a Guru Dakshina, I request you to please subscribe, like and share it. You can also visit my Instagram account, Dr. Megha Soni Physio. So now first let's discuss about Parkinsonism. What is the definition of Parkinsonism and what are the symptoms and signs of Parkinsonism? So all of you know Parkinsonism is a progressive disorder of central nervous system. Progressive because it is progressive in nature and it's a disorder of central nervous system. More precisely, if I want to say, Parkinsonism is a group of disorder. It's a group of disorder in which predominantly you find degeneration of dopaminergic fibers. Fine. So basically Parkinsonism is because of degeneration of dopaminergic fibers of basal ganglia. So it is an extrapyramidal disorder. Fine. Parkinsonism, due to degeneration of dopaminergic fiber, you may find 4 types of cardinal features. Let's see here. It's a chronic progressive degeneration of basal ganglia. In that you find degeneration of striatonigral pathway that we have seen in our direct and indirect pathway. Okay, characterized by 4 cardinal features. First is rigidity, second is bradykinesia, third is resting tremor, and in later stage you find postural instability. This postural instability is because of rigidity, bradykinesia and resting tremor. So this is all about motor symptom. But Parkinsonism is also Parkinsonism shows both type of symptom, motor as well as non-motor symptoms. But today we'll discuss about the motor system of Parkinsonism, motor symptoms of Parkinsonism. So what is rigidity? Okay, rigidity is one of the sign of extrapyramidal damage. Okay, all of you know spasticity. What is spasticity? Spasticity is increase in tone. What is rigidity? Rigidity is also increase in tone. Then what is the difference between spasticity and rigidity? It is very important to understand the difference between spasticity as well as the rigidity. So, spasticity is a sign of UMN type of lesion. It's a sign of pyramidal system damage. Whereas rigidity is the sign of extrapyramidal system damage. Okay. Second difference, spasticity is always velocity dependent. Velocity dependent means it depends on speed. Okay, means whenever you perform a passive movement, if I want to check spasticity, okay, if I perform movement in a normal speed, okay, if I perform a passive movement in a normal speed, I will not feel spasticity. Okay, you need to perform fast movement as spasticity is velocity dependent. Fine. Whereas rigidity is not velocity dependent. Fine. When if you perform a normal movement with a normal speed, then only normal speed you may find rigidity. Okay, so this is the second difference of between spasticity and rigidity. And the third difference, spasticity is present in only one group of muscle, whereas rigidity is present in both the group of muscle, agonist and antagonist. Fine. Okay, if I am performing elbow extension and if I feel resistance during performing elbow extension, it means the increase in tone is present in my elbow flexors. But if I perform elbow flexion and I do not find any resistance, it means it is spasticity, because spasticity may present only in one group of muscle, either agonist or antagonist. Fine. Whereas rigidity is present in both group of muscle, agonist as well as antagonist. So while performing flexion as well as extension, in both way you find rigidity. Okay, rigidity are of 2 types, lead pipe and cog wheel. That we'll discuss later. Second is bradykinesia. What is bradykinesia? Bradykinesia is slowness in initiation of movement. Fine. Bradykinesia or a hypokinesia, it's a slowness of initiation of movement. If I ask patient to hold this scale, okay, the scale is here, and if I ask patient to pick up this scale and hold it, fine. So what normal person will do like this quickly? Okay, normal individual will quickly perform this movement, but patient with Parkinsonism will have difficulty to initiate the movement. As if I am a patient, if you ask me to hold this scale, fine. So I'll take some time to initiate the movement. After few seconds, 10 or 15 seconds, I'll start performing movement. Okay, it will take some. I'll take some time to perform this movement, and I'll do it slowly. So that is bradykinesia or a hypokinesia, means problem in initiation of movement. Okay, third is tremor. Okay, specifically you find resting type of tremor in case of Parkinsonism. Now there are many types of tremor: postural tremor, intentional tremor, essential tremor, resting tremor. Okay, this is the main differentiating point of Parkinsonism and the other extrapyramidal disorder, that the resting tremor is only present in Parkinson type of patient. What is resting tremor? By performing activity, patient will not develop tremors. Okay, by performing any activity, if I want to hold this, if I want to do this activity, I may not get tremor. Fine, but whenever patient go to resting position, okay, right now I am at a rest position, I am not doing any movement. So during resting position, my hands start doing this involuntary movement. So this is resting tremor. Only during rest you find this type of tremor. The frequency is 4 to 7 hertz. Okay, it's a frequency, and it is like peak rolling type of tremor. Okay, like this type of tremor you find in Parkinsonism. And fourth one is postural instability. In later stage of Parkinsonism, you find this postural instability, and this postural instability is due to rigidity, bradykinesia, and resting tremor. Due to rigidity, the muscle strength will be reduced. Most of anti-gravity muscles will be weak. Okay, which are anti-gravity muscles? Neck extensors, trunk extensors, lumbar extensors, hip extensors, knee extensors. These are anti-gravity muscles. So because of they lost their strength, patient will assume stoop type of posture. That is like this. It's a stoop posture. Okay. Neck will remain in a flex position, both shoulders are in a protracted position, kyphotic posture, hip in a flex position, knee in a flex position. So that is the stoop posture patient assume due to muscle weakness. Fine, but they develop it in a later stage, and it is because of this bradykinesia, rigidity, and resting tremor. Fine, and because of all this, patient develop fascinating gait. So today in my lecture we will learn about the pathophysiology of resting tremor, bradykinesia, and rigidity. Fine. For that you are supposed to know direct pathway and indirect pathway, because damage to direct pathway and indirect pathway will lead to rigidity, bradykinesia, and resting tremor. Link of my all previous lectures are in description box. Check it. Now first I am going to quickly revise the direct pathway, and then I show you what happened if there is damage to this pathway. Okay. So in direct pathway, cortex sends excitatory signal to striatum. Cortex secretes glutamate over striatum. So this striatum is being stimulated. Now, striatum consists of GABA. So, as this striatum is stimulated, it secretes more and more amount of GABA over globus pallidus internus. GABA is inhibitory in nature. So, this GABA inhibits GPI, globus pallidus internus. As GPI is inhibited, it consists of GABA. So, it is now not able to secrete more amount of GABA over thalamus. So it is not able to inhibit the thalamus. So thalamus will be excited or facilitated, and then this thalamus will be sending excitatory signal to cortex, and by this way facilitatory movement takes place. Fine. So this is all about the direct circuit. What is the role of substantia nigra par compacta on the direct circuit? So this is D1 receptor, substantia nigra par compacta, and this is nigrostriatal pathway. So it has facilitatory effect on D1 receptor. This nigrostriatal pathway stimulates D1 receptor, and this D1 receptor stimulates this striatum fiber. Fine. So it stimulates the striatum. Striatum consists of GABA. It secretes more and more amount of GABA over GPI. So GABA is inhibitory in nature. So it inhibits GABA. It inhibits GPI, that is globus pallidus internus. As GPI is inhibited, now it is not able to secrete more amount of GABA over thalamus. Okay, you can see in this diagram. So thalamus is disinhibited, or it is not able to inhibit the thalamus. So in other way, it will be stimulated. So this thalamus will send this excitatory signal to cortex, and by this way movement takes place, facilitatory movement takes place. So what is the role of substantia nigra par compacta over this circuit? So it stimulates D1 receptor. It acts as a fine tuner. Okay, I hope you all are clear with the normal mechanism of this direct pathway. Right? Now we will see what happened in Parkinson's disease. Now we'll see what happened to damage to direct pathway. As I said, in Parkinsonism, you find degeneration of dopaminergic fiber, nigrostriatal pathway. Fine. So let's see in this direct pathway what happened, what it will lead to. Fine. As this nigrostriatal pathway is now degenerated. Fine. It is degenerated. So now it is not sufficient enough to stimulate D1 receptor. Why? Because these fibers are now degenerated. The substantia nigra par compacta is not sufficient enough to secrete dopamine over the D1 receptor. So D1 receptor is not stimulated by this fiber. Now what happened? If this D1 receptor is not stimulated properly, this D1 receptor cannot stimulate striatum also. Fine. In normal pathway, what happened? D1 receptor stimulates the striatum, so striatum secretes more amount of GABA. Now, because of damage over here, it is not sufficient enough to stimulate D1 receptor, so D1 receptor is now not able to stimulate striatum. So striatum is inhibited. Fine, as it is not sufficient enough to stimulate striatum. Now, as striatum is inhibited, striatum secretes less amount of GABA. It secretes less amount of GABA. This is what I am talking about when you find damage to this pathway. Fine, in Parkinsonism. So now striatum secretes less amount of GABA over GPI. In normal pathway, it secretes more amount of GABA over GPI, but when we find damage over here, it secretes less amount of GABA over globus pallidus internus. Due to less secretion of GABA over GPI, GPI is not inhibited, or it is disinhibited or stimulated automatically. Fine. So because less amount of GABA is secreted over GPI, GPI is not inhibited or disinhibited or stimulated. As this GPI is stimulated, it secretes, as it consists of more amount of GABA, it secretes more and more amount of GABA over the thalamus. And what is the nature of this GABA? GABA is inhibitory in nature, right? As this GPI secretes more amount of GABA over thalamus through the pallidothalamic fiber, it inhibits thalamus. It inhibits thalamus. Now this thalamus consists of which fiber? Thalamocortical fiber. Now thalamus is inhibited, so it is not sufficient enough to secrete glutamate. So less amount of glutamate is secreted. Less amount of glutamate is secreted over cortex. So this is inhibition. It means inhibitory signal is to be sent to cortex. See, in normal pathway, it sends the thalamus sends excitatory signal, facilitatory signal. Now we can see due to damage to pathway, as this nigrostriatal pathway is damaged, or you find degeneration of these fibers, so it is not sufficient enough to secrete dopamine over D1 receptor. So it is not sufficient enough to stimulate D1 receptor. So D1 receptor is not sufficient enough to stimulate striatum. So striatum is inhibited. As striatum is inhibited, it secretes less and less amount of GABA over globus pallidus internus. So GPI is automatically disinhibited or stimulated. So GPI secretes more and more amount of GABA over thalamus. As the GABA is inhibitory in nature, it inhibits thalamus, and thus thalamus sends inhibitory signal to cortex. That is why indirect pathway, damage to striatonigral pathway will lead to bradykinesia, and bradykinesia is one of the cardinal feature of Parkinsonism. Due to degeneration to dopaminergic fiber in indirect pathway, it leads to bradykinesia. What is bradykinesia? In bradykinesia, patient develop difficulty in facilitation, initiation of movement. Okay, patient may face difficulty in initiation of movement. Initiation means movement because of inhibitory signal is to be sent to cortex by thalamus. Fine. So whenever striatonigral pathway are degenerated, this direct pathway will lead to hypokinesia or a bradykinesia or a akinesia. I hope now you understood the mechanism of it. Okay, normal direct pathway facilitates the movement, but damage to this nigrostriatal pathway will lead to bradykinesia. Now we'll see what happened to indirect pathway if indirect pathway is being damaged. First, I would like to tell you the quick revision of indirect pathway. So, in indirect pathway, in normal indirect pathway, the cortex sends excitatory signal to striatum. It secretes glutamate over striatum. So striatum is stimulated. As striatum is stimulated, it secretes more and more amount of GABA over globus pallidus external. So GABA is inhibitory in nature. Globus pallidus externus is inhibited. Globus pallidus external consists of GABA. As it is inhibited, it secretes less amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. As it secretes less amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus, the subthalamic nucleus is disinhibited or stimulated. As subthalamic nucleus is stimulated, it sends excitatory signal to GPI, or it secretes more and more amount of glutamate over the globus pallidus internal, and glutamate is always facilitatory excitatory in nature, so it facilitates GPI. GPI consists of more and more amount of GABA. So as it is stimulated, it secretes more and more amount of GABA through this pallidothalamic fiber over the thalamus. As more amount of GABA is secreted over thalamus and the GABA is inhibitory in nature, it inhibits thalamus, and as thalamus is inhibited, it sends inhibitory signal to cortex, and cortex sends inhibitory signal to the muscle via corticospinal trend. So this is all about the indirect pathway. Direct pathway is responsible for facilitatory movement, and this indirect pathway is responsible for inhibition of the movement. Now we'll see what is the role of substantia nigra par compacta over indirect pathway, in normal indirect pathway. Right now I am talking about only in normal indirect pathway. So substantia nigra par compacta, here D2 receptor is situated. In direct pathway D1 was situated, D2 receptor So substantia nigra par compacta has inhibitory effect over the D2 receptor. So it inhibits D2. Here it has a facilitatory effect, but here it has an inhibitory effect of D2. So D2 is inhibited, so it inhibits striatum. Less amount of GABA is secreted over globus pallidus external, as less amount of GABA is secreted over GPE. GPE is disinhibited or excited. As GPE consists of GABA, as it is excited, it secretes more and more amount of GABA. The red line means secretion of glutamate and blue line means secretion of GABA. So it secretes more and more amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. What is the nature of GABA? Inhibitory in nature. So it inhibits this subthalamic nucleus. As the subthalamic nucleus is inhibited, this subthalamic nucleus is not able to secrete more amount of glutamate over GPI. This is what I am talking about, this pathway. Fine. In previous pathway, this subthalamic nucleus secretes more amount of glutamate over GPI, but in this pathway, subthalamic nucleus secretes less amount of glutamate over GPI. As this subthalamic nucleus secretes less amount of glutamate over GPI, what is the nature of glutamate? Excitatory nature. As less amount of glutamate is secreted over GPI, GPI is not excited or stimulated. Okay, fine. So GPI is inhibited. As this GPI is inhibited, it secretes less amount of GABA over thalamus. Now what happened? Less amount of GABA over thalamus means this GPI is not able to stimulate thalamus. Okay, excites thalamus. This GPI is not able to inhibit this thalamus. So thalamus will be automatically excited, and this thalamus sends facilitatory or excitatory signal to cortex, and it facilitates the movement. Fine. So this is normal indirect pathway. If we see this pathway, okay, without substantia nigra par compacta, indirect pathway inhibits the movement. But what is the function of substantia nigra par compacta in indirect pathway? It acts as a fine tuner. Fine. So this pathway, substantia nigra par compacta to striatum, striatum to GP, GP to subthalamic nucleus, subthalamic nucleus to GPI, GPI to thalamus, this pathway normally facilitates the movement. Fine. So this is all about the normal pathway. Now we will see what happens if we find damage to these fibers. Now we'll see what will happen to indirect pathway in case of Parkinsonism. So as we have seen, in Parkinsonism we find degeneration of dopaminergic fiber. Fine. So this is substantia nigra par compacta and this is nigrostriatal pathway. So in case of Parkinsonism, this pathway will be degenerated. Means it is not sufficient enough to secrete dopamine over the striatum. So in normal, the substantia nigra par compacta inhibits the D2 receptor in case of normal indirect pathway. But due to degeneration of this pathway, now this substantia nigra par compacta is not sufficient enough to inhibit this D2 receptor. Fine. So D2 receptor will be automatically excited, as now this is not sufficient enough to inhibit this D2 receptor. As this D2 receptor is excited, it sends excitatory signal to striatum. Fine. It sends this, as this D2 receptor is attached with the striatum. Striatum means caudate nucleus and putamen. So now as this is stimulated, disinhibited, it sends excitatory signal to striatum. So striatum is excited. Now tell me what happened. This striatum is consist of GABA, and now this striatum is excited. It means it secretes more and more amount of GABA over globus pallidus externa. You can see in indirect normal pathway, it secretes less amount of GABA. right? But when we find damage over here, this striatum is stimulated and it secretes more and more and more amount of GABA over globus pallidus external. So this globus pallidus external is inhibited as it secretes more and more amount of GABA over GPE, and it is inhibitory in nature. This GP is inhibited. Now tell me, GP consists of which neurotransmitter? Yes, it consists of GABA. Fine. So as it is inhibited, it is now not sufficient enough to secrete more amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. So this GPE secretes less amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. You can compare, right? In normal pathway, it secretes more amount of GABA, but when we find damage, it secretes less amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. What is the nature of GABA? GABA is inhibitory in nature. As this GPE secretes less amount, it is not sufficient enough to inhibit this subthalamic nucleus. So this subthalamic nucleus is stimulated automatically or disinhibited. Fine. Now, as this subthalamic nucleus is disinhibited, it consists of neurotransmitter glutamate. As it is stimulated, it secretes more and more and more amount of GABA over, here is GPI, fine, GPI, fine. So it secretes more and more and more amount of glutamate over GPI. Now what is the action of glutamate? It is excitatory in nature. It excites GPI. It stimulates GPI. Now tell me, in GPI consists of which type of fiber? Which type of neurotransmitter? GABA. Fine. As this GPI is stimulated, it secretes more amount of, okay, more amount of GABA. It secretes more amount of GABA over thalamus. Fine. In normal pathway, it secretes less amount of GABA, but in damage to this pathway will lead to secretion of less amount of GABA from more amount of GABA from GPI to thalamus. Now, as more amount of GABA is secreted over thalamus, this thalamus is inhibited. This thalamus is inhibited. Now, as this thalamus is inhibited, it secretes less amount of glutamate or it sends inhibitory signal to cortex. This is inhibitory signal. In normal pathway, it secretes more amount of glutamate or it sends facilitatory signal, but in damage, when we find damage to this pathway, it sends inhibitory signal to cortex, and this inhibitory signal will be sent to muscles through the corticospinal tract. Again, damage to this substantia nigra par compacta, so it is not able to inhibit this D2 receptor, as because of it D2 receptor is stimulated. So this D2 receptor excites striatum. As striatum consists of GABA, it secretes more amount of GABA over GPE. So it inhibits GPE. As GPE is inhibited, it secretes less amount of GABA over subthalamic nucleus. As it secretes less amount, this subthalamic nucleus is disinhibited or facilitated. So it secretes more and more amount of GABA over GPI. Fine. So this GPI is being stimulated. So this GPI secretes more amount of GABA over thalamus through the pallidothalamic fiber, and this thalamus is inhibited and it sends inhibitory signal to cortex. So what it will do? Again, students, this indirect pathway, damage to this indirect pathway will also lead to bradykinesia due to degeneration of this dopaminergic fiber. Indirect fiber also sends inhibitory signal to cortex and it will lead to bradykinesia, which is one of the cardinal feature of Parkinsonism. Now what it means? Direct pathway and indirect pathway. Damage to both pathway will lead to bradykinesia. Okay, that is problem in initiation of movement. I hope you all are clear about it. Okay, so this is the pathophysiology of hypokinesia, bradykinesia. Now I hope you understood why we find bradykinesia in Parkinsonism, because Parkinsonism is the degeneration of dopaminergic fiber, and due to this degeneration there will be damage to direct as well as indirect pathway, and both will lead to bradykinesia. Now we'll see the mechanism of rigidity. Rigidity is increasing tone. Patient gives complaint of heaviness of upper limb and lower limb. In Parkinson patient, first rigidity starts to develop in one side of our body and then it progresses to another side of our body. Rigidity may increase with excitement, stress and overactivity. Okay, and this rigidity may be reduced with the help of medical treatment, that is combination of levodopa and carbidopa. Fine. Let's see the pathophysiology of rigidity. Fine. We have seen the pathophysiology of direct pathway and indirect pathway. So this is direct pathway which lead to inhibition, and this is indirect pathway which lead to inhibition. So this both pathway leads to inhibition. You can also draw a diagram this in your exam in pathophysiology of Parkinsonism. So take a screenshot of it. Right? Now let's see what is the function of reticulospinal tract, because pathophysiology of rigidity is based on the damage or damage to function, damage to this nigrostriatal pathway and problem in the function of reticulospinal tract. So what is the function of reticulospinal tract? Reticulospinal tract is mainly responsible for maintenance of tone. But remember one thing, reticulospinal tract is very hyperactive in nature. Before going to teach it, I would like to give you one example. Suppose a hyperactive child comes to you for treatment, and under your treatment, during your treatment, that child remain normal. But what if that child do not follow your treatment? What if the child do not follow your treatment? Again, the child will become hyperactive. Just like that, reticulospinal tract is hyperactive in nature. We need to control the activity of reticulospinal tract. So who is controlling the activity of reticulospinal tract? It's a corticoreticular fibers. Let's see in this diagram. As you know, the reticular system is situated in midbrain pons and medulla oblongata, and the reticulospinal tract originated here and then it goes to spinal cord. Fine. So the fibers coming from cortex to reticular, so they are corticoreticular fibers. Corticoreticular fibers. So these corticoreticular fibers are responsible to control the hyperactivity of reticulospinal tract. Means due to normal function of cortex, this reticulospinal tract act normally so that they maintain the tone normally. Okay. Now what happened in this pathway? You can see the direct pathway and indirect pathway both lead to inhibition of this cortex. As the cortex is inhibited, fine, as the cortex is inhibited, this cortex is now not able to control this reticulospinal tract. As I said, if child do not follow the treatment prescribed by you, okay, that child will again become hyperactivity. As in this damage to nigrostriatal pathway or degeneration to that pathway lead to inhibition of the cortex. As this cortex is inhibited, now this cortex is not sufficient enough to control reticulospinal tract, and thus the reticulospinal tract activity will be increased. So increasing activity lead to increasing tone. Why? Because the normal function of reticulospinal tract is maintenance of normal tone. Now the activity has been increased, so you find hyperatone or an increasing tone in both group of muscle, flexors or agonist as well as antagonist, and that we called as rigidity. What is rigidity? During resting stage, when you perform a passive movement, again I am using passive movement, means while doing active movement, patient will not feel any jerky movement or a resistance to movement. But whenever patient is at rest and when you perform a passive movement, you feel excessive resistance to that movement. Fine. There are two type of rigidity: cogwheel rigidity and lead pipe rigidity. What is lead pipe rigidity? Whenever you try to bend, suppose this is lead pipe, fine, and whenever you try to this pipe, you need excessive force to bend it. Fine. That is why in lead type of rigidity, whenever you try to perform passive movement, you feel maximum resistance and it is very difficult to perform the passive movement throughout the range of motion. So that is lead type of rigidity. And second is cogwheel rigidity, means jerky movement. Fine. Suppose the patient has cogwheel rigidity, patient feels means you feel jerky movement while performing passive movement like this. Whenever you perform passive movement, during the some movement you feel this jerky movement, then in some amount of movement you may perform smooth movement, then again jerky movement and then smooth, jerky movement and then smooth, same, jerky movement, smooth, jerky movement, smooth. So that is cogwheel type of rigidity. So I hope you understood the mechanism and types of rigidity. Now we'll see the pathophysiology of resting tremor. Now we'll see the pathophysiology of resting tremor. Resting tremor means you see shaky palsy. Parkinsonism is also called as shaky palsy. You see this shaky movement during rest. Fine. So what is the mechanism of it? Resting tremor. Fine. So students, we have seen that D1 and D2 receptor, they are situated in striatum and dopamine is secreted over here. Fine. The dopamine stimulates this fiber stimulates D1 receptor in striatum, and this fiber stimulates D1 receptor in striatum in direct pathway and inhibit D2 receptor in indirect pathway. But along with this D1 and D2 receptor, there are two other receptors situated: cholinergic receptor 1 and cholinergic receptor 2. This cholinergic receptor 1 and 2, this secretes acetylcholine. Fine. They are affected by dopamine and they secretes acetylcholine. Okay. Now this receptor work simultaneously in a balanced manner. You can see this is D1 receptor and this is cholinergic receptor 1 or acetylcholine receptor 1. So these receptors have to work in a balanced manner. Okay. If this will be damaged, the activity of acetylcholine will be automatically increased. Why? Because now this D1 receptor is not sufficient, means it is degenerated. The dopamine is degenerated. So automatically the balance has been disturbed. So this will be active. The activity of this receptor will be increased. Fine. So the action of this is exactly opposite to D1 and D2. As in direct pathway, D1 receptor facilitates striatum, but cholinergic receptor, acetylcholine receptor, inhibit the striatum in direct pathway. In indirect pathway, D2 receptor inhibits striatum, but this receptor stimulates the striatum. So both are working in a balanced manner. Now what happened in Parkinsonism? These are degenerated. These receptors are degenerated. So what happened during rest? The activity of acetylcholine will be increased. Okay. it's a reverting type of circuit. What happened during rest? During rest, I'll show you over here. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, fine. Let me show you here only. As in Parkinson's, the dopaminergic receptors are damaged. So now the activity of this receptor will be increased. So what happened during rest? It sends action potential to another neuron. Again, this action potential will come back to the original state and it stimulates here. Again, this will happen. Okay, so this is called as reverting circuit. Reverting means this action potential will go forward and again it goes backward and stimulate it again and again and again. So it creates hyperactivity of the joint. Fine. That is why during resting stage the acetylcholine activity will be increased. Okay, you feel hyperactivity of wrist flexion, and that your brain starts to recorrect it. So it does hyperactivity of wrist extension. So hyperactivity of flexion extension, and this will lead to resting tremor. Fine, because of the hyperactivity of acetylcholine receptor, as these receptors are not working properly and it stimulates the action potential, repeatedly stimulates only one neuron repeatedly, and you find resting type of tremors. As I said, resting type of tremor, it is the frequency is 4 to 6 hertz, and this tremor increase during excited activity or during stress or emotional activity. And just because of this, you find postural instability and fascinating gait. Fascinating gait is Parkinson gait, in which you find the patient takes more steps like this. Because of this stoop type of posture, patient takes small cadence, more steps, as the line of gravity falls before the it does not fall within the base of support, it falls anterior to base of support. So patient walks like patient tries to catch center of gravity, line of gravity within the base of support. Okay, you may also find freezing episode in fascinating gait. Okay, and patient may also having difficulty in initiation of the movement, and due to bradykinesia you may also find mask type of face, means no expression, just like that. Okay, that is because of bradykinesia. Fine. So this is all about the motor symptoms of Parkinsonism. I hope you understood my lecture. If you have any doubt, you can write in my comment section. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much. See you in next video.